warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So my name is Marhaba Chisha. We are from Group 3. Today we'll present our research paper entitled Factors Influencing Consumer Purchase Intention During Pandemic, a study on grocery items. I'll pass the presentation to Harid.
Thank you, Marha. My name is Muhammad Zulharis and I will continue presenting on the introduction. So we have conducted this research study to investigate the factors influencing consumer purchase intention on grocery items after the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic. As we all already know, COVID-19 has been declared as a pandemic by World Health Organization (WHO) on 30th January 2020. According to WHO, COVID-19 cases were first detected in Malaysia in January 2020, and it has affected the country so bad, including affecting businesses and consumers. Therefore, many efforts have been made to adjust with the pandemic situation, such as the implementation of lockdown and movement control order (MCO) by the government. Due to this implementation, many institutions have been shut down and business activities have been halted. These limitations also have drastically impacted consumers' purchasing behaviors and intention. Consumers may face circumstances where there is uncertainty that influences their intention to purchase during the pandemic. Perceived risks may exist in the consumer's mind. For example, consumers have become more concerned about their health and food that they purchase and consume. Despite the limitations, consumers still need to fulfill their utilitarian needs, and therefore they have to adapt and follow the new norms during the pandemic. Lastly, the situation also drives the consumers to be more connected with others by building up online communities through various social media platforms. Through this research, it is hoped that the result findings will improve the consumption of grocery items during the pandemic. Next is our research objective. So we have proposed 3 research objectives for this study. The first research objective is to examine how social media affect consumer purchase intention during the pandemic. Second objective is to examine how social influence affects consumer purchase intention during the pandemic. And third, to examine how food safety concerns affect consumer purchase intention during a pandemic. Next, based on our research objective, we came out with 3 research questions. Our first research question is, what is the effect of social media on consumer purchase intention during pandemic? Second is, what is the effect of social influence on consumer purchase intention during the pandemic? And third, what is the effect of food safety concerns on consumer purchase intention during the pandemic? Next, the significance of our study is to analyze and examine the main factors that affect consumers' purchase of grocery items during the pandemic. We thought and considered 3 important factors, which are social media, social influence, and food safety concerns as our independent variables. Next, the significance of this study is to identify the behavior of the consumers and take into account their ways of thinking during the pandemic. We wanted to examine the intention of consumers in purchasing grocery items during the pandemic. Lastly, the significance of this study is to set a more precise strategy on how to promote products during the pandemic. We hope that our research can help to develop better strategies for businesses. Next, I will pass to the next presenter.
I am Halima, and today I will present the literature review in our research. Our literature review is about the 4 impacts on the consumer buying behavior during the COVID-19 pandemic. The first impact is the social media. Because of the pandemic, people are relying fully on the social media and the internet due to the limitation of social distancing. As a consequence of social media, communities have engaged in the panic buying behavior globally in their effort to prepare for the lockdown to avoid the contracting the coronavirus. Cybertrauma, or known as the anxiety, developed from the excess internet usage dependency to attempt at the self-diagnosed symptoms, are rapidly affecting the communities worldwide in their attempt to take precautions against the COVID-19. The increasing dependency on social media and the internet has caused a major change in the consumer purchasing behavior. And the second impact is the social influence. The COVID-19 takes a hit to the economy in the world. It affects the production, distribution, and the consumption integrally. The influence from the COVID-19 to the society affects the consumer buying behavior significantly. And also, the social norms impacts the consumer consumption in the pandemic as well. Moreover, the online social network would increase the consumer's self-esteem and reduce the self-control, which is also one of the social influence that impact the consumer buying behavior. Next slide, please. The third impact is the food safety concern. The food safety concern is a focus issue in the world. According to our research, the consumption of healthier food increased and the consumption of the fast food decreased in many countries during the pandemic. Moreover, the women have more food safety concerns than men, since the women are more taking care of the family food safety and the security. And the last impact is the consumer purchase intention. The consumer purchase intention is certainly be impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Perceived severity due to the pandemic affects a consumer's purchase intention and causes the unusual purchasing behavior. It is observable that a lot of people engage in panic buying behavior during the early phase of the lockdown due to the perceived severity. And the health risk of COVID-19 also will increase the risk perception and directly affect the attitudes of the consumer purchasing behavior. The previous factor that we have discussed, such as the social media, social influence, and the food safety concern, contributes to a person's perceived severity and will also certainly cause the changing of purchasing intentions to be able to adapt to the pandemic. Okay, that's all from me, and I'll pass to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum, I am Alia, and I will be presenting the research methodology used for our research. Our research model is developed based on our literature review process and demonstrated the causal relationships between the independent variables and dependent variables, which in turn help form the hypothesis. Our independent variables are social media, coded under SMI, social influence, coded under SI, and food safety concern, coded under FSC. Our dependent variable is consumer purchase intention, coded under CPI. These hypotheses developed from our literature review process are tested via data collection from our general consumer population. As for our data collection, a quantitative method was used in designing the self-administered questionnaire. This is tested to 182 sample size for this research in order to discover the factors influencing the consumer purchase intention during pandemic in terms of grocery items. A convenience sampling is applied in which the self-administered questionnaire are distributed to IIM students as well as the general public. The questionnaire consists of 5 sections, of which one section is intended to collect respondents' background information, while 4 sections are pertaining to our research. There are a total of 18 questions, of which the statements stated within the questionnaire utilize the Likert scale, of which 1 is considered strongly disagree and 5 is considered strongly agree. In terms of respondents' profile, 62.1% are female, 68.1% are below 25 years old, 64.3% are bachelor degree students, and 81.3% are Malaysians. And as for the survey results, we discovered that 36.3% are indifferent to being easily influenced by social media when it comes to purchasing, and 38.8% are neutral to following social norms in purchasing. However, 40.1% of respondents somewhat agree that their concerns about food safety influences whether or not they purchase a product. And that is all from me. I will pass on to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum. I will continue with the analysis and result. Okay, to ensure the consistency and stability of the questionnaire, a reliability test is conducted to measure its reliable. And to analyze it, we use Cronbach's reliability test that has a range value from 0 to 1, which is the closer the value to 1 means the better consistent and stable of the questionnaire. So for Cronbach alpha in our research is obtained 0.811 and it was acceptable value that show high reliable of the questionnaire. After the reliability test, KMO and Butler test of sphericity was analyzed, and based on the table, as you can see, the result of KMO is 0.819. That indicates the data is satisfied and suitable. For Butler test of sphericity was significant to 0.000, which point out a satisfied correlation between the variable of the questionnaire instrument. Okay, next, EFA was conducted with the variable rotation method along with factor loading greater than 0.5 and egg value greater than 0.7. So all the four factors contribute to 69.730% of the total variance. So all the items were loaded upon their respective factor as shown in the table 2 along with the egg values and the percentage variance. So that's all from me.
Thank you, Ilyas. Now I'll proceed with my presentation on the regression analysis. So after the testing on the reliability of the data and exploratory factor analysis, multiple regression analysis was made to investigate whether social influence and food security concern could significantly predict consumer purchase intention on grocery items. So our dependent variable was set to customer purchase intention, and our dependent variable is the social media influence, and also food security concerns. The regression was run on the 182 data that we collected from our questionnaire. And here's the table that we retrieved from the regression. This is the descriptive statistic table. So next slide. So the next table is the model summary. In the model summary, we need to look at the R-squared value, which is the measure of goodness of fit. So the higher the value of R-squared, the better our data is. So based on the regression, we found out that 46.7% of the variation in the dependent variable can be explained in the variation of the dependent variables, which shows that our data are statistically significant. The next one is the ANOVA table. So based on the ANOVA table, the result of the regression showed that the model was a significant predictor of consumer purchase intention on grocery items with a p-value equals to 0.000. And the last one is the coefficient table. So the first value that we need to look at in the coefficient table is the standardized coefficient beta value. So based on the beta value, we can see that social influence is the main predictor to the consumer purchase intention of grocery items, followed by social media influence and food security concern. The next value that we need to see is the p-value, which is the significant value. So the p-value shows that only social influence and social media influence significantly predict the value of the consumer purchase intention on grocery items, because as you can see, as for food security concerns, the value is only 0.053, whereas the value is 0.958, whereas the value of P must be less than 0.005. Okay, so lastly is the coefficient table. In the coefficient table, the first value that we need to look at is the standardized coefficient beta value. So based on the beta value, we can see that social influence is the main predictor to the consumer purchase intention on grocery items, followed by social media influence and food security concerns. The next value that we need to see is the p-value. The p-value shows that only social influence and social media influence significantly predict the value of the consumer purchase intention of grocery items. As we can see under the significance row, food section have a significant value of 0.958, which is actually which shows that it is not significant because the p-value should be less than 0.05 to show that it is actually significant to the dependent variable. Okay, so now I'll conclude and give some recommendation for future research. So based on our research, we can conclude that social influence is proven as the main factor that influence consumer purchase intention on grocery items, and it was followed by social media because information are spread to social media. As we all know nowadays, the advancement of technology are happening rapidly, and every single information regarding COVID or grocery items, any kind of information are spread through social medias. And food security concern is surprisingly the least concern that influence the consumer purchase intention. And our recommendation for future researchers is the first thing is to allocate more time to the research and target better respondents, and lastly to propose more factors and independent factors such as health consciousness. So that's all from us. Thank you.